Hi, my name is Melissa Hinojosa, and today I will be talking to you about mental health. Do you know someone with a mental disorder? If you do, it is extremely heartbreaking, especially when it's someone you really care about. Mental disorders are very serious and should never be joked about, as it could potentially affect someone who has a mental health problem, and it will make it harder for them to prove they need help. What is mental health? According to Dr. Timothy Legg, mental health refers to our behavioral and well-being, meaning it's all about how we think, feel, and behave. We may have racing thoughts, suicidal thoughts. You may have insomnia, worried all the time, or paranoid. You may behave irrational, angry, irritable, and you can also be verbal, emotional, and physical abusive. You may feel depressed, you're crying all the time, don't want to get out of bed or leave the house. The most common mental disorders include 1, anxiety disorder. There are 5 common anxiety disorders. There's general anxiety, obsessive compulsive, panic disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, and social phobia. What is general anxiety? It is excessive ongoing anxiety. You're worried about everything. Obsessive compulsive, unreasonable thoughts and fears, such as germs or a need to arrange objects in a specific manner. Panic disorder is a sudden episode of intense fear or anxiety. You tend to feel like you're having a heart attack. Post-traumatic stress disorder is a mental health condition that's triggered by terrifying events. Anybody can have post-traumatic stress disorders, not just people in the military. Social phobia. This mental health condition is when social interaction causes irrational anxiety. For example, if you're at a party and it's a large group and it's really crowded, somebody can have that social phobia and have an anxiety attack. I know there's people, when you go shopping at Walmart, it's overly crowded and people can have anxiety there as well. Let's talk a little bit about bipolar disorder. Bipolar disorder is a mental condition associated with episodes of mood swings ranging from depressive lows and manic highs. Bipolar 1 and 2 causes manic episodes such as high energy, reduced need for sleep, and loss of touch with reality. Depressive episodes such as low energy, low motivation, and has loss of interest in daily activities. These symptoms can last days, months, weeks, and people may have suicidal thoughts. These people with bipolar feel like they have no support, they're in denial, and they cannot handle the symptoms. They don't feel normal, they feel like they're outcasts, they feel like it's everybody else's fault but their own. Borderline personality disorder is a mental disorder characterized by unstable moods, behavior, and relationships. Borderline personality disorders, you have a hard time with relationships because you have unstable relationships, self-harm, extreme emotional swings, chronic feelings of emptiness, and explosive anger. The last one we will talk about is schizophrenia. Is a disorder that affects a person's ability to think, feel, and behave. Symptoms include aggressiveness, repeated movements, self-harm, memory loss, hallucinations, and mental confusions. Some people that you see down the street, they're talking to themselves. They may have some kind of disorder, maybe schizophrenic. These people have a hard time holding jobs. They're confused. They have no memory. So what causes mental illness? Researchers are still trying to understand what causes mental illness. Some of the researchers that have been found, one, for example, in 2016, Researchers at the Broad Institute found strong evidence that the cause of mental illness is 1, genes and family history, your life experiences such as stress or history of abuse, especially if it happens during childhood, biologic factors such as chemical imbalances in the brain, which is most common, a traumatic brain injury, or a mother's exposure to viruses or toxin chemicals while pregnant. And here's a picture of some of the most common. Okay. Dr. Matthew State, chief of psychiatry, says there is no one cause. It can happen due to mixed factors, including genetics, how your brain works, how you grew up, your environment, your social group, your culture, and life experience. So what is the treatment? And maybe some support. There are different types of treatment. The most common is medication from a psychiatrist. There's different kinds of medications, so somebody taking a medication for the first time may have to be changed several times as the body needs to get used to the medicine. There's a lot of people that are prescribed this medication, but they refuse to take it because they say that they don't feel good, it makes them feel bad, and this is when their bodies go into a shock and they start having suicidal thoughts and they don't want to take their medicine, but they need to. There's also support groups out there willing to help. For example, there's a group support called the National Alliance on Mental Illness. Your family and friends can support you, and no one knows how someone is feeling unless you're in their situation. A lot of people are so confused and uneducated about mental disorders that they kind of distance themselves off from the loved one because they don't understand what mental health is. It is important that if you do have someone who's suffering from mental illness, that to help them, let them know that you're there for them, that you support them, that you have patience. This way they can overcome and feel like they have someone to go to. If a loved one is suffering from mental illness, please make sure that you can go with them to these counseling sessions or support groups. Now let's talk a little bit about the statistics. Here we have, if you can see, there is 4 million American children and adults with a serious mental disorder. And that's a lot. There's 2 in 10 children that are diagnosed with a mental disorder. 1 in 2 mental disorders that begin by the age of 14. And there's only 20% of children with mental disorders are identified and treated. So it's best to, if you have someone that is starting to experience anger, depressed, you might want to seek help. Here's another photo of what we're going to be talking about. Okay, there is 9 in 10 people that commit suicide, and suicide is the 3rd leading cause of death for people between the ages of 15 and 24. Suicide kills more Americans in this age group, and this is because people don't know how to overcome, what to do when they have a mental disorder. Students 14 and older may start having school problems. They might not be working or doing their homework, getting bad grades, being picked on or bullied. Legal trouble in youth and juvenile. There's 65% of boys and 75% of girls that will have legal trouble. Let's get this quick. I want to talk a little bit about this here. 18.1% of Americans have anxiety disorder. 6.9% of Americans live with major depression. 2.6% of Americans live with bipolar disorder. 1.1% of Americans have schizophrenia. And 10.2 Americans have a co-occurring mental illness. And now it's a lot. So I'm hoping that this little presentation will help you be more educated and understand what mental health is. To understand what mental illness is, you have to know what it means. Mental illness is not something that should be avoided. If someone is in need, give them support, patience, comfort, and love, because mental illness is lifelong. Thank you for watching and learning about mental health. Have a good day. Bye.